Ryan, everything
said.
Yeah. Everything I was afraid of that I talked about on this show came to fruition. So if you want to blame me out there, Spartan Nation, I'll take it. But everything that I was afraid of, and then some, happened this weekend in Seattle with Michigan State and Washington. Michael Penix destroyed us. Destroyed the secondary. There is no secondary. Ain't nobody back there playing defense. They standing around like damn mannequins. Defense was terrible. And to add on top of that, our offense was non-existent in the first half. Nothing to be spoken of. And on top of that, Washington dominated us at the line of scrimmage. Their running game was better than our running game. Their O-line was better than our O-line. Their D-line was better than our D-line. We had nothing going. I don't want to hear about fighting in the second half. I don't care. We are trying to build something here, and I'm not seeing any growth whatsoever with this defense. None from last year. All the moves in the transfer portal and bringing in Amir Speed, and I understand that we had some injuries to deal with. Xavier wasn't there. Darius wasn't there. Slade wasn't there. Big pieces. Not going to say otherwise. But Washington wasn't 100% healthy either, and they dominated us. Penix looked absolutely unstoppable in this game. Almost 400 yards in 3 quarters. Their first punt came in the final minute of the third quarter. We did nothing. 397 yards and 4 touchdowns for Penix. They absolutely dismantled us. It was 29-8 at halftime, and it wasn't even that close, Ryan.
No, it wasn't that close. It was so embarrassing, man. It's not even just the loss of it that was embarrassing, because you went on the road, a Power 5 team, and you were the underdog. If you lose, it's whatever. But lose in a game where it's back and forth, and you lose the lead late, then I'm sad. I'm not necessarily upset. But just with the way Michigan State came out, lifeless and out there making mistake after mistake, and really giving Washington all the opportunity that they needed to succeed. Even before the defense started falling apart, Michigan State had their first drive on offense. They get to about a 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. Jarek Broussard goes the wrong way. Peyton Thorne turns around. There's nobody to play action into, and then he gets sacked. Boom, drive over. The next drive, you stop them on the goal lines. Now you have a little bit of momentum, but you're still backed up. But you didn't give up the touchdown. You didn't give up any points. You snap it. Jarek Broussard falls down, and then Washington gets points anyway. So it was just that. Mel Tucker called it death by inches. And I know he was referring to the game as a whole, but I didn't like the unpreparedness, the sloppiness that they came out with. And then as far as that defense goes, they didn't pressure at all. They didn't just not get pressure with the front four. They really didn't send any blitzes. They send one, and then Ben Van Sumeren gets hit with the roughing the passer call on Penix because he drives him into the ground. I think it was the first drive that extended their Washington's first drive, and they eventually went down to score a touchdown. But it was embarrassing from that aspect, and just not being able to stop them, because you even think before halftime, Michigan State scores, they're down 8-22. It's 2 touchdowns. You get the ball back at halftime, and while you're not thrilled with the way the game is going, you see a path to victory, right? You're like, okay, maybe we can just calm down. We get the ball back to start the second half. Let's score. Let's go down 1 touchdown, and then it's kind of essentially a new ball game. Doesn't happen. Penix goes right down the field before the end of the first half, scores, makes it 29-8, and now you're down 3 touchdowns, and Washington, again, has all the momentum. So where now when you do come out and score in the second half, which is what Michigan State did, now you're down 2 touchdowns instead of 1, and it's just a constant uphill battle for Michigan State, and that's what I'm most disappointed by. In the secondary, we knew it wasn't good. I don't know how the hell there were so many people wide open, because you weren't blitzing anybody, so you were just trying to load up the secondary with bodies so that there wouldn't be so many wide open spots. But every time, Washington was running wide open. And I was on here, we have YouTube reels of it, so go Detroit Sports Nation, YouTube, watch our reels, watch our videos, all that stuff. They're on Instagram too, at Real Detroit Sports Nation, I think is on Instagram. I don't know, there's a fake one out there pretending to be us. But I was all on the reel saying Michigan State should be favored in this game, given all these reasons. Washington was bad last year. They're going to be bad this year. And I had to eat all of that because Michigan State ended up getting dominated by Washington. So, again, everybody, if you're coming back to say, ha, I told you so, you absolutely did. And then with Washington, where I want to give them credit is their offensive coach is not going away from what was working. They're running a whole hell of a lot of motion on their first drives, and they were scoring on all of them because Michigan State was confused, and guys were getting wide open. So instead of going away from that, like poorer, lesser coaching staffs would have, right? Oh, now we got to establish the run. Now we got to do something else. Washington didn't do that. They kept with the motion. They said if it's going to confuse them, we're just going to wait until it doesn't confuse them anymore, and then we can switch up. The problem was it kept confusing the Michigan State defense, and they didn't know what to do. Washington was wide open. Penix was making all the plays that he had to. I don't know that he had to go into so many different reads because I think for the most part, all of his reads for his first or second reads were probably open when he was dropping back to pass, and he wasn't getting pressured, not from the front four, not from any type of blitz because Michigan State wasn't sending those. So he had all day. He got in the rhythm, and he was just super comfortable picking the defense apart, and I think that's where the game went wrong for the defense, and then the offense didn't help him either. Not being able to run the ball. Peyton Thorne, I thought he played really well. Honestly, I thought it was his best game, of course, of the season, but one of his best games, of the last two seasons. And it kind of just didn't matter because as much as Michigan State, fought in the second half, they dug themselves way too big of a hole in the first half and then still weren't able to get any stops. And that's the story of the game. And it was way more embarrassing than a regular loss would have been, right? Like it was unacceptable because of how it happened, not because it happened.
No, I hear you. And there's so many questionable situations and calls where I didn't understand why certain plays were called. Look, I'm going to always be this way, but when it is whatever and 1 yard and you are doing a running play out of the shotgun, I'm going to forever root for you to fail because you're a moron for trying to do a running play for 1 yard and you start 5 yards back. So for me, you will all, and so when it's 3rd and 1 and they do a shotgun run and it got stuffed, saw that coming all day. Why wouldn't you? We had nothing on the ground all day. And the decision to continue to throw Jarek Broussard out there, and I understand you have been of the opinion from the year starting that Broussard was the better running back to Berger. And I'm not saying he is or he isn't, but he clearly didn't have it on Saturday. And he kept getting thrown out there. So was Berger hurt? Did I miss something where Berger got hurt? Because I could not understand continuously putting in Broussard for these big moments when you have a big, strong back in Berger that has been proving it so far this year for you. There was just so many questionable situations with Mel and the coaching staff that I just didn't understand. Yes, one of the bright spots, absolutely. Peyton Thorne, best game of this year by far. He actually looked competent as a quarterback again for the first time since last season. He found a new target with Jaden Reed not being able to be out there in Keon Coleman. Great game for Coleman in a losing effort. He was the bright spot for us far, and there really was nobody else. It was those two. Oh, and the tight end. I'm blanking on his. Was that
Barker? Daniel
yes.
Barker?
Yeah. Barker, Illinois transfer, had a nice game as well, and I hope that he is someone that we bring into the fray more often offensively. But there was just so many questionable situations and calls by Michigan State. The fact that Washington came out the gate and literally ran it down our throat to start, not passing it. They established the run game immediately against us, and I did not see that coming. Did not expect that. Obviously, all the touting we have done about Michigan State's front seven and our ability to stop the run, and that's our bread and butter and all this stuff. Well, if we can't depend on us stopping the run, Ryan, we're going back to a 5-win football team this year. Because we can't stop the pass. That's not happening. And if their plan to stop the pass is to load up the box with as many guys as possible back there to stop a pass as opposed to getting pressure, we're definitely not going to be a good football team. I'm sorry. Go get pressure on the quarterback. That's apparently where our strength is, to stop the offense from the other team. And we're continuously going to be putting schemes out there where we are just sitting in zone areas and letting receivers pick us apart. None of this makes any sense to me.
It doesn't. And so we were still able to stop the run. They had less than 3 yards of carry. Their main runner, Cameron Davis, he's looking at 17 carries for 69 yards, which is 4 yards of carry, but he did have a 30-yard run. So if you take that away, he's at 16 for 39, which is just about 3 yards of carry, not even, like 2.5, which is obviously much less impressive. So for the running game, they were still able to, kind of bottle them up for the most part. But it doesn't matter if these teams are just going to throw the ball, all over on you. And the decision to sit back in zone was perplexing to me. Especially so, not bringing pressure and sitting back in zone. If you're like, hey, they're going to have to beat us through the air, this is what we're going to do. That sort of makes sense to me. I still just want to get pressure on the quarterback, like philosophically, because I think that is obviously the better way to try and rattle another team. But it doesn't matter if these guys don't know what they're doing. And if you're sitting back in zone, people are still wide open. But you got 7 guys in zone coverage. So how is that happening? Who's not doing their zone? Mel talked about people missing assignments. And I'm sure there was a lot of that. And if these guys can't play zone, go to pressure. I think from the man that they played, the very little bit of man that Michigan State played, Washington completed 14% less of their passes when Michigan State was in man versus zone. I still think it was a pretty high number, probably, but they were just having success, whatever they wanted to do through the air, and it was, it really reminisced the bad secondary games that Michigan State had last year. When you're looking at Purdue, the secondary cost them. You're looking at the Ohio State game, obviously the secondary cost them. And even in the Michigan game, they had the pick at the end, but the secondary was still getting torched. And so for Michigan State, I don't know what they have to do. I know they have to get better at identifying zones if that's the way they're going to play it, and if they don't think they have the guys to play in man, is fine, whatever. Then play zone and live with the results. But they need to get better at identifying those so that those don't happen, right? It's probably going to happen once a game. These are college kids. There's always a zone that gets misread. Somebody's running wide open. You turn on pretty much any college game between 2 big-time opponents, and you're just going to see that. But for it to happen consistently, for guys to be in the middle of the field wide open, it's not even like they just got, way past the defense. And, the corner thought he had safety help, and the safety thought he was doing something else. So this guy's behind everybody on the defense by 30 yards. This guy's in the middle of the field, wide open, 15 yards down the field with nobody by him. I'm sitting here yelling and my ear pods coming out. It's insane, man. And I don't understand how that happens and how it happened so often. That's the most frustrating part to me. Is Michigan State, they did what Michigan State wanted them to do. They dropped back and threw it. Michigan State probably thought they were going to have enough bodies, that there obviously wasn't going to be as many passes completed, that they were probably going to get some turnovers, and of course that they were going to get some pressure up front with the front four, because they knew Washington wasn't going to run. Washington didn't really try. They had 36 rushing attempts, but if they weren't up 21 points the whole game, they probably would have ran it a little bit less and still not had much success with it. And that's just frustrating. I hate every part of it. It needs to get better. I don't see it getting better this year, but if Michigan State is going to continue with this, then it needs to get better. Because if not, then I think Scotty Hazelton's out of a job at the end of the year.
And I know everyone's calling for his job there and everything, but we don't have the athletes yet in the secondary. Again, it is Mel's 3rd year, and he's bringing in his own class, and he's trying to do what he can in the transfer portal, and we thought we addressed some of these issues. And I wasn't expecting Michigan State to literally go from the worst secondary in all of college football last year to top 25 or top 50. No. But was I hoping that we would see a significant improvement to get them to around middle of the pack secondary? Yes. And we're just not there yet, obviously. And Xavier Henderson not being in is a big loss, obviously. But to me, as far as philosophy, for a quarterback, Ryan, what bugs a quarterback more? Getting hit so hard that your ancestors feel it, or throwing a pick into coverage? I would think getting hit so hard your ancestors feel it is going to bother a quarterback more throughout the game. So get pressure. I don't care about leaving guys on an island behind me. If my 4, 5, 6 guys are getting pressure to the quarterback to make him second guess, is there someone about to hit him from behind? Does he know for sure there's no one right there, and maybe the throw is a little bit off, as opposed to giving him all sorts of time but covering in the secondary? It doesn't make sense to me with the athletes that we have, where our strength is versus where we are obviously so very weak. None of that made any sense to what we were doing.
No, and I think even if that's your game plan coming in, when you see your front four isn't getting pressure, then adjust, because you did see the Ben Van Sumeren play work. I mean, he got penalized on it, but if you're getting pressure like that, you're obviously not going to get called for a penalty every play. So you take that one, you throw it out, and say, hey, remember, get off the quarterback. You hit him and kind of just throw him away, I guess. Right?
Turn sideways, something.
Yeah, not so much a defender can do, but like you saw that play worked. So just do more of that, especially when the other stuff isn't working. It's not like they were sitting back in zone and they were getting picks and batted balls, and Penix had to throw underneath because just the middle of the field and deep were all covered. Like, none of that happened. So if it's not going to work anyway, you might as well try and get some type of pressure another way. But Penix was comfortable all night, and I think it stemmed from them not pressuring him like at all at first, so then he's able to get into a rhythm, and then he's just not out of that rhythm because they still weren't able to get any pressure on him. He knew what his receivers were doing. They were all on the same page, and I think the Washington offensive staff called a really good game to still confuse Michigan State and not confuse their own players, because when you get a lot of motion, you can get a lot of illegal formation. The offense isn't set, false starts, things like that, and Washington didn't have, I don't know that they had any of those. Right, there might have been a false start because that's just what happens regularly, but for the most part, I thought they were pretty disciplined. They're certainly more disciplined than we were.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe don't focus so much on going to sleep at some certain time to be caught up on the West Coast timeline. Yeah, Jesus. Just, maybe focus on trying to find a way to make the quarterback's life more difficult on the opposing team.
Just play football.
Yeah. Just play football. Nothing to really talk about on the other side. Michigan dominated UConn 59-0. I don't think I've ever seen 7 quarterbacks play before for one team. Blake Corum tied a school record, 5 touchdowns. Yeah, and McCarthy was great for the time that he was in. Nothing to talk about. They haven't played anybody yet. We'll wait and see what they do. The Big Ten schedule is starting this upcoming week. Thank God for so we can actually see Michigan against some actual talent, because I'm tired of watching them beat up junior varsity high school teams, which is exactly what Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn are. Not throwing shade. We all book easy out-of-conference schedules. Just I'm waiting to see Michigan against a real team. And I actually am excited to see J.J. McCarthy against some competition, because I've thought for a while now that he should be the one starting instead of Cade. So I don't want to see him against us. Not after seeing what Penix did against us. I think JJ is going to smoke us. I think Ohio State's going to smoke us. Maybe Maryland. I think those are the 3 teams where there's actually a quarterback back there to smoke.
Do we play Purdue again or no?
I don't think we play Purdue this year. I'll have to take a look at the schedule for next show when we prepare for the upcoming weekend of Michigan State games as well as Detroit Lions games. But it's at least one happy note. The Lions look good against Washington. The other sad note, Michigan State looked terrible against Washington's. Completely different Washingtons, too.
Hey, Ryan Griffin here. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Griffin and Bass. Be sure to give us your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to click the bell to receive the latest notifications from DSN, and subscribe for breaking news, community blogs, polls, contests, and other content.